She should not have asked me that. Not after the first night she came to my door, shaking so hard she could barely hold her phone. Not after the months it took her to remember how to breathe without fear. Not after I spent all that time teaching myself the difference between loving someone and taking advantage of the moment they needed you most. But there she was, standing in front of me with her hotel keycard in one hand and her eyes locked on mine like she had already made up her mind. "Stay with me tonight," Chloe said softly. "Not for that, just stay." I did not answer right away, because the dangerous part was not what she was asking. The dangerous part was that I had wanted to hear those words for longer than I was willing to admit, and one wrong move and I would become every man who had ever taken something from her when she was too tired to fight back. One honest answer, and I might ruin the best friendship I had left. She took one step closer, searching my face. "Ryan," she whispered, "are you still going to pretend that night meant nothing?" That was the problem. It had meant everything. And if I stayed now, was I protecting her all over again? Or, finally, crossing a line neither of us could uncross? My name is Ryan Cole. I'm 28, and until Chloe Harper showed up at my door after midnight, I thought I had built a life that could not surprise me anymore. I was wrong. The first time she asked to stay with me, her voice sounded nothing like the one I heard tonight. Tonight, it was steady, careful, chosen. That first night, and it sounded like something had cracked inside her, and she was trying not to let the pieces fall out in the hallway. I remember opening the door and seeing her there with mascara on her cheeks, one backpack hanging off her shoulder, and fear all over her face. "Can I stay over tonight?" That was all she said. No long explanation, no dramatic story, just 7 words that made my whole body go cold. I stepped aside before my brain caught up. "Yeah, come in." She moved past me fast, like the hallway itself was dangerous. I locked the door behind her, and I swear I saw her breathe for the first time since I opened it. I wanted to ask who hurt her. I wanted to know if Derek had touched her. I wanted a name, a reason, something I could aim my anger at. But she was standing in my living room, looking like one more hard question might break her, so I swallowed all of it. "You don't have to explain anything tonight," I told her. "You're safe here." That made her eyes fill all over again. Chloe and I had known each other since high school. Back then, she was the kind of girl who could make even detention feel like a private joke. She had this sharp mouth and this quick smile and a way of making every room feel less stiff the second she walked into it. I was quieter, more careful, the kind of guy teachers liked because I did not make trouble. She used to say I looked like I had been born apologizing. I used to tell her she talked enough for both of us. Somehow that turned into a friendship that lasted through bad haircuts, college, bad jobs, and all the dumb choices people make in their 20s when they still think time is endless. Then life pulled us apart for a while. Then 6 months before that night, she moved into the apartment next to mine in Seattle with Derek. I told myself I was happy for her, and I was, mostly. Derek was the kind of man people trusted too quickly. Nice watch, easy smile, loud confidence. He knew how to make a joke sound charming and how to make an insult sound like concern. The first few times I met him, nothing was wrong enough to point at. That almost made it worse. It was little things. He answered for her sometimes. He corrected her stories when she was in the middle of telling them. He looked at his phone while she was talking, then acted like she was the rude one if she stopped. I noticed all of it. I said none of it. She looked happy, or close enough to it, and I had no right to be the bitter friend who hated the boyfriend for no reason. That was the lie, I told myself. The truth was uglier. I did not trust him because every time he put a hand on the small of her back, it looked less like love and more like steering. That night, I grabbed a blanket from the back of the couch and held it out to her instead of draping it over her shoulders. I did not want to touch her without warning. She noticed that. I could tell. "Thanks," she said, voice small. "You want tea?" She gave a tired shake of her head. "Water? Maybe." I brought her a glass and set it on the coffee table. She sat down slowly, backpack still clutched in her lap, like someone might try to take it from her. I took the chair across from the couch instead of sitting next to her. No, space mattered. I could feel that much. For a while, neither of us said anything. The silence was not empty. It was full of effort. Her effort to stay upright. Mine not to push. Then she laughed once, sharp and humorless. "I didn't think this would ever be me." "What do you mean?" She stared at the floor. "The girl who says she's fine while she keeps making excuses for a man who gets worse every month." My jaw tightened. "Chloe, he threw my phone." She said it flat, like she had already repeated it to herself 10 times and was sick of hearing it. "At the wall, right next to my head." I did not move. I did not interrupt. But something in me stood up so fast it almost felt physical. She kept talking because, now that she had started, I think she knew stopping would hurt more. "He's been angry a lot, about work, money, me, everything." She pressed her thumb into the side of the water glass but did not drink. First it was questions, then checking my messages, then telling me what made me look cheap, then who I should stop talking to. Then it turned into me managing every word that came out of my mouth so I wouldn't set him off. I could hear my own pulse in my ears. "And tonight?" Her mouth trembled. "Tonight," I said, "maybe we should stay in instead of going out." He'd been drinking already. He got mad. Said I ruined everything. Said I was dead weight. Then he picked up my phone and threw it. She looked up at me then, and what scared me most was not that she was crying. It was that she looked embarrassed, like she thought she had to prove this was bad enough to justify leaving. "You do not have to defend walking out," I said quietly. And her face changed a little. Not better, just less alone. "I called my cousin Hannah," she said. "She's in Portland. She said I can stay with her. I couldn't make myself get on a bus tonight." "You don't have to." I leaned forward, elbows on my knees. "You stay here. My room's yours." "No, Ryan, I can't do that." "You can. I'll take the couch. You're taking the room." She almost smiled then. Almost. "You always do that." "Do what?" "Say things like they're already decided." I shrugged once. "Only when I'm right." That got a real sound out of her. Small, fragile, but real. I went to my room, grabbed a clean t-shirt and sweatpants and brought them back folded. "These will be huge on you." "Great. Then I'll look powerful." There she is. The look she gave me after that nearly broke me. Not because it was romantic, because it was grateful. Because some part of her had needed proof she still existed outside whatever Derek had turned her life into. She stood, taking the clothes from my hands, and for 1 second, our fingers brushed. She flinched. Not from me, from the memory living in her body. I hated him in that moment with a kind of clarity that made my chest hurt, but I kept my voice even. "Bathroom's all yours. Take your time." She nodded and disappeared down the hall. When the bathroom door shut, I stood alone in my living room and looked at the deadbolt like it had become the most important object in the world. Then I made myself a promise. I would not ask her for more than she could give. I would not use her worst night to become the answer to a question she was too hurt to ask clearly. I would keep her safe, even if all that got me was goodbye in the morning. The bathroom door opened a few minutes later. She stood there, wearing my t-shirt like armor, eyes red, hair damp around her face, and then she asked the question that changed everything between us. "Ryan," she said, barely above a whisper, "if I fall asleep here tonight, can you promise I won't wake up scared?" "Yes," I said. I answered too fast to hide how much I meant it. Something in her face loosened. Not fully, not safely, but enough that I knew the right thing to do was keep everything simple. "You can lock the bedroom door if you want," I told her, "or leave it open." "Now, your call." She nodded once. "Open." "Okay." I know that sounds stupid. It doesn't. What I did not say was that I understood exactly what she meant. A closed door could feel safe to one person, and like a trap to another. Tonight she needed choices more than comfort. Maybe that was the same thing. I grabbed my pillow and the extra blanket from my room before she could argue again. She stood in the hall, watching me, still wound tight, still half expecting me to ask for details she could not carry yet. Instead, I pointed toward the bedroom. "You sleep. I'll be out here." She looked at the couch, then back at me. "Your neck is going to hate you." "My neck already hates me. We have history." That earned me the faintest smile. Barely there. But it mattered. She hovered for another second. And then she did something that almost undid me. She stepped forward and pressed a quick hug into my chest. Not a romantic one, not even close. It was the kind of hug a drowning person gives a doc after pulling herself out of the water. "Thank you," she whispered. My hand stayed light on her shoulders for less than a second before I let go. "Go sleep, Chloe." She nodded and disappeared into the room. I stayed awake long after the apartment went quiet. There are different kinds of silence. The silence I had built my life around was clean, predictable. The kind that helped me think. The silence that settled over my apartment that night felt like a living thing. Every tiny sound mattered. The sink ticking in the kitchen, pipes behind the wall, a car splashing through rain below, once, and the mattress in my room creaked softly, and my whole body went alert before I reminded myself it was just her turning over. I did not sleep much. Part of that was the couch. Most of it was anger. I kept seeing the pieces she had dropped without meaning to. The shattered phone, the way she held her backpack the whole time, the way she flinched when our fingers touched. The part that stuck under my skin the deepest was not even what Derek had done. It was what he had changed. He had taken a woman who used to fill every room she entered and made her ask permission to exist inside her own life. That thought kept me staring at the ceiling until gray morning light started leaking through the blinds. I must have drifted it off at some point because the smell of coffee woke me. For one confused second, I thought I was late for work. And then I sat up, saw my blanket twisted around one leg, and remembered. Chloe. I pushed myself up and walked into the kitchen. She was standing at my coffee maker in my oversized t-shirt and sweatpants, hair tied back, one hand wrapped around a mug. Her face still showed the night before, but something had settled in her. She looked tired, not terrified. "Morning," I said. She turned, and there it was again, that careful, almost surprised smile. "Sorry, I found your coffee." "I noticed. You've robbed me, and I'm too sleepy to stop you." A tiny laugh escaped her. Real this time. Small, but real. I poured myself a cup and leaned against the counter across from her. I did not ask how she slept. I let her decide what morning meant. She made the choice for both of us. "I slept," she said softly, staring into the steam, "like actually slept." I nodded once. "Good." And when I woke up, I didn't have to guess what mood someone was in. That one hit me harder than anything from the night before. She looked embarrassed right after saying it, like she had shown too much. I hated that too. How often had she been made to feel dramatic for telling the truth? We moved to the kitchen table with our mugs. Rain tapped lightly at the window. Somewhere down the hall, an elevator dinged. The world kept going. Our little square of it had changed. She pulled her cracked phone from the pocket of my sweatpants and turned it over in her hand. I called Hannah again this morning. Your cousin in Portland? Yeah, she'll let me stay as long as I need. Chloe swallowed. She's already looking up lease stuff for me, and one of her friends is a lawyer. I think I should get my things out before Derek tries to twist it around. That's smart. I know. The way she said it told me she needed to hear someone agree without taking over. So I said, "You've got a plan." "I'm trying to." She set the phone down carefully. That feels new. There was more she wanted to say. I could see it. I waited. She folded her hands together. Do you know the weirdest part? What? I kept thinking if I just explained myself better, he'd stop being mad. Her mouth tightened. Like there was some perfect version of me that could make him kind again. I chose my words slowly. That's not weird. And that's what people do when they love someone who keeps moving the target. She looked at me for a long second. You always say things like, you've been holding them in for weeks. I probably have. That brought another small smile. Then it faded. He didn't always act like this, she said. That's the part that messes with your head. In the beginning, he made everything easy. He remembered details, sent flowers for no reason, told me I was the only person who really got him. Her eyes dropped to the table. Then slowly everything became my fault. His bad mood, his drinking, his pressure at work, his jealousy. If I laughed too hard with someone, I was disrespectful. If I wanted time alone, I was distant. If I pushed back, I was ungrateful. A hard weight settled in my chest, not because I was surprised, and because hearing the full shape of it made me want to punch a hole through something. But anger was not what she needed from me right then. So I kept my voice steady. You don't owe him one more chance to prove what he already proved. Her eyes filled, but this time she did not look away. I think I knew that last night. I just needed to hear it somewhere outside my own head. You heard it? She nodded. We spent the next hour making practical decisions because practical things can save a person when feelings get too big. She booked a bus to Portland for that afternoon. I offered to drive her to the station. She tried to refuse. I ignored that. She asked if it was too much trouble. I told her trouble was helping someone move a couch up 3 flights of stairs. Taking her to a bus station barely qualified. And before she went to shower and change back into her own clothes, she stopped in the doorway to my room and looked at the bed like it meant more than furniture now. I forgot what it felt like, she said. What? To sleep somewhere without earning it. I did not know what to say to that. Maybe there was nothing good enough. So I said the truest thing I had. You never had to earn this place. She pressed her lips together hard, nodded once, and disappeared into the bathroom. When she came out, dressed and packed, she looked more like herself than the woman who had shown up after midnight. Not healed, not all right, but standing. At the bus station later, she held her backpack with one hand and her ticket with the other. Buses groaned. People moved around us with paper cups and duffel bags and tired faces. It was the kind of place where everybody was leaving something. She turned to me before boarding. Ryan? Yeah? If he calls you, don't answer. I frowned. Why would he call me? Her expression shifted. That tiny, awful pause told me she had already thought about it. Because men like Derek don't lose control quietly. The driver called for final boarding. She stepped closer. I mean it. Don't let him drag you into it. I looked at her for a second, really looked at her. Even now, even hurt, she was trying to protect me from the mess she was escaping. I wanted to tell her I would answer every call if it helped keep her safe. I wanted to tell her she would never have to ask twice. I wanted to say 100 things that sounded too big for a bus station. And instead, I took the strap of her backpack, straightened it on her shoulder, and said, "Get to Portland. Breathe for a while. We'll figure out the rest when you're ready." Her eyes softened. Then she surprised me again. She reached into the small front pocket of her bag and pulled out a dented metal measuring spoon set on a ring, old, worn, familiar from the few times I had seen her bake years ago. "My grandma's," she said. "I grabbed them before I left last night." She placed them in my hand. "Keep them for me." I stared at the spoons, then back at her. "Chloe, if I have them, I might talk myself into going back for the rest too soon." Her voice shook, but only a little. "You keep them until I'm strong enough to ask for them back." I closed my fingers around the cold metal. That was not just a kitchen tool. That was trust. And trust, once handed to you like that, becomes a vow. I kept the measuring spoons in the top drawer of my kitchen for 3 months. Not hidden, not displayed, just there, close enough to touch. Sometimes I would open the drawer looking for something else and see them resting beside the takeout menus and loose batteries, and that small ring of dented metal would hit me harder than it should have. It was proof of 2 things I could not ignore. First, Chloe had trusted me on the worst night of her life. Second, I had no idea if that trust would ever become anything more than distance and phone calls and a friendship rebuilt around careful timing. I told myself that was enough. Most days, I even believed it. Portland helped her. I could hear it in her voice before I could see it in her messages. And at first our conversations were simple, safe. She would text to say she made it through the day. I would text back something steady and boring on purpose because she needed steadiness more than charm. Then slowly, more of her started coming back. She sent me a photo of a notebook filled with logo sketches for a coffee shop client. Another of a crooked blueberry pie she called ugly but perfect. One afternoon she texted me. I laughed today and didn't feel guilty after, and I sat at my desk staring at that message longer than I should have. She also told me the hard things, about waking up from dreams where glass shattered near her face, about hearing footsteps in the hallway outside Hannah's apartment and freezing before remembering she was safe, about therapy. That last one mattered most. And not because therapy fixed everything quickly. It didn't. But because every time Chloe talked about it, I could hear ownership in her voice. She was not just escaping Derek anymore. She was rebuilding herself in a way that did not depend on me. That mattered. It had to matter. Because if there was ever going to be something between us, I needed to know it would come from freedom, not fear. A few weeks after she left, Derek called anyway. He did not have my number before. I still do not know how he got it. Maybe from Chloe's phone before he smashed it. Maybe through some mutual contact. It did not matter. What mattered was the way his voice sounded when I picked up without checking the screen. Sharp. Controlled. Too controlled. "Where is she?" I stepped out onto my balcony and shut the door behind me. "Lose this number." He laughed once. "So she is with you." "She is not your business anymore." "That's cute," he said. "You think she ran to you because you're special?" Every muscle in my body went tight. I should have hung up. I know that. But there are moments when a man says the one thing that reveals exactly who he is, and you need to hear one sentence more just so you never doubt yourself again. "You think you saved her," Derek said. "You just got there first." I hung up after that, blocked him. Then I stood on my balcony with the yum in my hand and let the anger move through me until it turned into something cleaner. A resolve. He was wrong. I had not saved Chloe. She had saved herself the second she walked out that door. I had only opened one. That difference became important later. A month after the call, she asked if we could talk, not text. Talk. I took the call in my kitchen with one hand on the counter and my chest already too tight. "I'm coming back to Seattle next weekend," she said. "For good?" "Not yet." A small pause. "For my stuff." I looked toward the drawer without meaning to. "Okay. Hannah's driving up with me. We're renting a trailer. I already checked with the leasing office. Derek's been in and out, but technically I'm still on the lease until the end of the month." She took a breath. "I wanted to ask if you'd be there." There it was. Not a rescue, not a plea, a choice. "Tell me when," I said. On Saturday morning, she arrived wearing jeans, boots, and a burgundy sweater, with her hair shorter than before. It should not have hit me the way it did, but it did. She looked like someone who had cut off more than split ends. She looked awake. Hannah was exactly what I expected. Tall, direct, all business. The kind of cousin you thank God for in a crisis. She shook my hand once and sized me up in a way that made it clear she had already decided whether I was useful. Apparently, I passed. We went upstairs together. Chloe unlocked the apartment door and stood there for a second before going in. It looked the same, but not really. Same couch, same shelves, same kitchen light. Only now the place felt stripped of any illusion it had ever been a home. We worked fast. Clothes first, design equipment second, bathroom things, and personal papers. A framed photo of Chloe and her grandmother from years ago. I wrapped that one myself. In the kitchen, she opened a drawer and went still. "What?" She let out a breath that sounded almost like a laugh. "He left all the baking stuff exactly where it was." I stepped beside her. Rolling pin, mixing bowls, a half-used bag of flour hardened in the corner, and an empty space where the measuring spoons should have been. "You still have them?" she asked quietly. "Yeah." A strange look crossed her face. Relief, maybe, or grief, or both. "Good," she said. "I wasn't ready then, but I'm glad they were somewhere safe." So was I. We were almost done when the front door opened. Not kicked, not slammed, just opened. Derek stood there with a paper bag in one hand like he had stopped for lunch on the way home and expected the world to still belong to him. He saw the boxes, saw Hannah, saw me. Then his eyes landed on Chloe. For 1 second, no one moved. Then he put the bag down very carefully on the counter. "What is this?" Chloe straightened. I watched it happen, not suddenly, not like a movie, more like a person stepping fully into her own body. "I'm taking my things." He looked at me. "Get out." I did not answer, because this part was not about me. Chloe took one step forward. "No." That single word changed the whole room. Derek blinked. "Excuse me?" "No," she said again, stronger this time. "You don't get to talk over me anymore. You don't get to scare me anymore. And you definitely don't get to decide what I take from a place I paid for, too." He laughed, but there was nothing smooth left in it. "This is because of him?" Hannah lifted her phone and started recording. Chloe did not even glance at me. "This is because of you." He looked like that answer had never occurred to him. Men like Derek always think they are competing with another man. They never imagine the truth is simpler. Sometimes a woman just gets tired of shrinking. He tried one more angle. Softer voice. Sad eyes. A performance he probably believed in. "Chloe, come on, we can talk." She shook her head. The version of me that stayed and explained and begged for you to be kind is gone. The room went so quiet, I could hear traffic 6 floors below. And then she picked up the last sealed box and handed it to me. Let's go. That was it. No speech, no scene, just a decision. And maybe that was why it hit so hard. Outside by the trailer, while Hannah strapped things down, Chloe stood beside me with her hands in her pockets and looked up at the gray Seattle sky like she was seeing it new. I thought I'd feel more dramatic, she admitted. More broken. More angry. What do you feel? She thought about it. Lighter? Then she looked at me. And tired. But the good kind. Like after carrying something too heavy for too long. I nodded. She stepped closer. Do you still have them? Without a word, I went upstairs, came back down, and placed the measuring spoons in her hand. She stared at them for a second, then closed her fingers around the ring. Thanks for keeping them safe. I wanted to say I'd kept more than that safe. I wanted to tell her some promises start long before anyone speaks them aloud. But this was not the moment to make it about what I felt. So I said, you did the hard part. Her eyes held mine a little longer than friendship usually allows. I know, she said softly. That's why I can finally tell the difference. Between what and what, I did not ask. Not then, because some answers come closer when you stop chasing them. She got into Hannah's car a minute later and rolled down the window before they pulled away. Ryan? Yeah? Her hand tightened around the spoons. Next time I knock on your door, she said, I want it to be because I chose you wide awake. Then she smiled and drove away. And then I stood there in the parking lot, knowing the silence waiting for me upstairs would not feel empty for much longer.